America's financial stability is crumbling beneath the surface. Over 60% of citizens now live paycheck to paycheck, drowning in record-breaking credit card debt while savings vanish. Rising costs, job insecurity, and surging delinquencies signal that the collapse isn't coming. It's already here, hitting millions of ordinary Americans hardest. The economic breakdown and financial strain. The economic collapse in America isn't coming. It's already here, and it's not the kind of crash that makes headlines overnight. It's slower, quieter, and far more dangerous. Because this time, it's happening inside the homes of ordinary Americans. Right now, 61% of the country is living paycheck to paycheck. That means one unexpected car repair, one medical bill, or even a missed shift can send a family spiraling into debt. Almost half of all households can't cover a $500 emergency expense. That's how razor-thin the margin of survival has become. Meanwhile, credit card debt has exploded past $1.3 trillion, the highest in U.S. history. Delinquencies, missed or late payments, are rising faster than they did in 2008. People aren't overspending on luxuries. They're using debt just to buy groceries, pay rent, and keep the lights on. And those lights are getting harder to keep on. The average family now spends $709 more per month than just 2 years ago, simply to survive. But while families cut back, corporate profits have surged 65% since CEOs are earning 300 and 706 times more than the average worker. This wealth gap isn't an accident. It's the design. 21 million households are behind on their utility bills. 38 million Americans don't know where their next meal will come from, and 8 million working-age adults have stopped looking for work altogether, because the jobs that remain don't pay enough to live. Drive across America today and you'll see the symptoms everywhere: tent cities rising in suburbs, families sleeping in cars, and grocery stores with half-empty shelves by the 20th of the month. What we're witnessing isn't a recession. It's not a temporary downturn. It's a controlled demolition of the American middle class, hidden behind economic jargon and political slogans. The collapse isn't just financial. It's human, and unless people start paying attention now, this slow decay could soon become the new normal. 2 false economic illusions and wealth concentration. They say the economy is strong, low unemployment. The stock market breaking records. But if you look beyond the headlines, you'll see the truth. This so-called recovery is nothing more than an illusion, carefully designed to keep people calm while the system quietly bleeds them dry. The government points to job growth as proof that everything's fine. But here's the catch. 2/3 of those jobs are temporary, part-time, or gig-based. They don't come with benefits, stability, or livable wages. It's not prosperity, it's survival disguised as progress. Meanwhile, the top 1% of Americans now control 31% of all the nation's wealth, the highest share ever recorded. The bottom half, they own just 5%. That's not capitalism anymore. That's digital age feudalism, where the elites own the land, the data, the assets, and the future, while everyone else rents their way through life. For the average household, real wealth has fallen 3 years in a row, marking the longest decline in modern history. And while families struggle to stay afloat, the system finds new ways to profit from their pain. Payday loans, overdraft fees, and buy now, pay later traps have become part of everyday life, normalizing financial exploitation as if it's just how things work. Over 8 million Americans have lost employer-provided health insurance since many are now one hospital visit away from bankruptcy. This is how illusions work. The powerful control the numbers, the narrative, and the noise. They say inflation's under control, but your grocery bill keeps rising. They say wages are up, but your rent and utilities swallow the increase before you even notice it. The truth is simple. The economy is growing, yes, but it's not growing for you. It's growing from you. The wealth of the few is being built on the exhaustion, debt, and despair of the many. This isn't recovery, it's redistribution, upward. And the American dream, it's quietly being sold to the highest bidder. 3. The death of the American paycheck. There was a time when a paycheck meant freedom, a symbol of security, progress, and independence, but that era is gone. Today, the American paycheck has become a leash, a tool that keeps millions working harder, earning less, and falling further behind. Let's look at the numbers. The median household income in 2024 stands at $58,100. That's 9% lower than in 2019. Once you factor in inflation, In simple terms, the average family has lost the equivalent of an entire month's income every single year. Meanwhile, the cost of simply staying housed has exploded. The median rent is now $2,097 a month, the highest in American history. Half of all households are spending over 43% of their take-home pay just to keep a roof over their heads. And if rent keeps rising at this pace, home ownership, once the backbone of the middle class, will soon become a privilege reserved for corporations and the elite. To make up the gap, Americans are turning to debt like never before. Credit card balances have soared to $12 trillion, with an average interest rate of 24 points, and it's the younger generation, those under 40, who are drowning the fastest, facing the highest delinquency rates since the Great Recession. Even those with jobs aren't safe. Companies have perfected something called quiet layoffs, cutting hours, slashing benefits, and freezing promotions, while pretending everything is fine. It looks like job security on paper, but it's really slow financial suffocation. And for millions in the gig economy, rideshare drivers, delivery workers, freelancers, the picture is even darker. After expenses, most earn less than $10 an hour, trapped in a cycle where algorithms decide their worth. This is not just an economic shift, it's a social one. The paycheck is no longer a ticket to stability. It's a chain of dependency. The American worker isn't climbing the ladder anymore, they're holding on to the bottom rung, hoping it doesn't break. Or the psychological collapse. What happens when an entire nation forgets what peace feels like? When constant fear, anxiety, and uncertainty become the new normal. That's exactly where America is right now, not just facing an economic collapse, but a psychological one. According to the CDC, 1 in every 3 Americans now report symptoms of anxiety or depression. That's over 110 million people struggling mentally and emotionally, the highest in recorded history. And the most disturbing part, suicide rates have risen over 30% since the year 2000, especially among adults aged 35 to 54, the backbone of the American workforce. These aren't just statistics, they're silent alarms of a nation mentally breaking down. In 2025, hospitals across the country reported a 40% surge in stress-related emergencies, most tied directly to financial pressure, debt, and job insecurity. People aren't just tired, they're exhausted to the soul. The average adult now spends over 9 hours every day plugged into screens, scrolling through a constant stream of fear, outrage, bad news. It's psychological warfare disguised as entertainment. And as Americans break down, corporations cash in. Over 65 million people now rely on antidepressants, while Big Pharma rakes in $150 billion a year, selling pills for a system-made sickness. They're not curing the cause, they're monetizing the collapse. Because a population that's anxious, divided and exhausted is easier to control, and more likely to spend money chasing comfort they'll never find. The American Psychological Association calls this the age of permanent crisis fatigue, a time when constant uncertainty has rewired how people think, feel, and hope. And when hope disappears, collapse becomes cultural, not just economic. This isn't just about inflation or jobs anymore. It's about a nation losing its spirit. One panic attack, one sleepless night, and one prescription at a time. Because the real crisis isn't just in the economy, it's in the minds of the people trying to survive it. 5. The vanishing workforce. Something strange is happening across America. Millions of able-bodied adults, people in their prime working years, have simply disappeared from the labor force. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, over 84 million Americans between ages 25 and 54 are not counted as employed or unemployed. They're not working, not looking, and not even being counted anymore. They've checked out mentally, physically, and economically. Why? Because the jobs left simply don't pay enough to live. Half of the workforce now earns under $40,000 a year, trapped in low-wage service or logistics jobs with zero benefits, unpredictable hours, and no path forward. The Brookings Institution found that over 52% of all new jobs created since 2020 fall into this low-income category, while the cost of living keeps skyrocketing. For many, it's not that they don't want to work, it's that work no longer works. When rent, childcare, and healthcare eat up more than your paycheck, the math stops making sense. And that's where the gender divide deepens. Millions of men have exited the workforce due to mental burnout, health crises, or addiction, the so-called great male dropout. Meanwhile, women are being forced home as childcare costs explode. averaging $1,250 per month per child. For many mothers, working full-time now means losing money instead of earning it. Politicians brag about record-low unemployment, but those numbers are a mirage. They don't count the millions who've stopped trying, or the millions more scraping by in part-time gigs just to survive. This isn't a healthy economy, it's a slow-motion labor collapse. A system that burns through people until they give up. And every person who leaves the workforce isn't just a lost worker, it's a sign of a nation losing hope, one paycheck, one burnout, one broken dream at a time. Because the truth is, the American workforce isn't just shrinking, it's decaying from within, hollowed out by exhaustion, exploitation, and despair. 6. The retail and community collapse. Walk down any main street in America today and you'll see it. Empty storefronts, for lease signs gathering dust and silence where there used to be laughter, conversation, and life. What's happening isn't just a few store closures, it's the death of the American retail landscape. And with it, the collapse of community life itself. In just the first half of 2025, more than 3,200 major retail stores have permanently closed their doors. Household names like Walgreens, Macy's, and Bed Bath & Beyond, once symbols of middle-class comfort, are vanishing from neighborhoods across the nation. Even Walmart, a company long considered recession-proof, has shut down 47 stores this year, mostly in rural and low-income areas. But the question is, why? It's not just theft or bad management, it's structural decay. The reality is that 63% of Americans now live paycheck to paycheck. When people are choosing between rent, food, and electricity, they're not buying new clothes, electronics, or home goods. Consumer spending, the heartbeat of the U.S. economy, is collapsing. As a result, small businesses are being wiped out faster than during the 2008 crash. The Federal Reserve reports that small business loan delinquencies have doubled since 2021, and more than 500,000 family-owned shops have disappeared since the pandemic. Those weren't just businesses, they were community anchors. The diner where neighbors caught up, the local grocery that knew your name, the pharmacy that trusted your tab until payday, all gone. What's replacing them? Corporate logistics warehouses, faceless online giants, and delivery vans that know your address but not your name. The country that once built its culture around local stores and human connection is now being replaced by algorithms and two-day shipping. And when a community loses its shops, it loses something much deeper, its identity. With every closed door, crime rises, hope fades, and connection disappears. This isn't just about economics, it's about the social erosion of America itself, the slow decay of the places that once held it together. Because when Main Street dies, so does the heart of the nation. 7. The healthcare system in crisis. Now imagine this. You're sick, scared, and in pain. But there's no hospital open near you. That's not a dystopian future. That's happening right now across America. The U.S. healthcare system, long called the best in the world, is collapsing in slow motion, quietly, brutally, and in plain sight. According to the American Hospital Association, over 600 rural hospitals are at immediate risk of closure. In 2024 alone, 104 emergency departments shut down permanently, not because of natural disasters, but because they couldn't afford to stay open. Patients in many towns now travel hours for basic medical care. And if you live in states like Mississippi, New Mexico, or Alabama, wait times for a primary care appointment can stretch into months. The crisis doesn't stop there. Doctors and nurses, the backbone of the system, are burning out and walking away. 1 in 5 nurses say they plan to quit within the year, citing overwork, understaffing, and trauma from years of crisis conditions. Hospitals are understaffed, overbooked, and running on fumes. Meanwhile, the cost of simply getting sick has become unbearable. Medical debt has hit $105 billion, making it the leading cause of bankruptcy in the country. Almost 41% of Americans now owe at least one unpaid medical bill. Think about that. In the wealthiest nation on earth, nearly half its citizens can't afford to get better. And even if you can pay, there's no guarantee the medicine will be there. Pharmacies are reporting shortages of more than 300 essential drugs, from antibiotics to cancer medications. This isn't just bad logistics, it's profit-based rationing. Drug companies chase profit margins, not patient needs, and supply chains crumble under corporate greed. The result? People dying not because cures don't exist, but because they can't afford them or can't find them in time. Insurance premiums rise every year, outpacing wages, while healthcare CEOs award themselves multi-million-dollar bonuses. The US healthcare system no longer heals, it monetizes suffering. It's a system designed to treat illness as a business model, not a human tragedy. And for the middle class, it's a slow, merciless squeeze. Families go bankrupt over a broken leg. Cancer patients crowdsource for survival. Hospitals run ads instead of ambulances. This isn't just a healthcare failure, it's a moral collapse. Because when a nation can't take care of its sick, it's not just the system that's dying, it's the soul of the country itself. 8. The vanishing American home. Once, the American home was the cornerstone of the dream, a symbol of stability, pride, and progress. But today, that dream has turned into a nightmare. The foundation of homeownership is crumbling, and millions are being pushed out of the very homes their parents once fought to own. Let's look at the numbers. According to Redfin, the median home price in the US has hit $45,000, while the median household income hovers around $58,000. That's a staggering 7.5 to 1 price-to-income ratio, the worst affordability gap in modern history. To put that in perspective, in 1980 the ratio was just 2.5 to 1. And it's not just prices. Mortgage rates are now sitting at 7.4%, the highest in 23 years. That means a typical monthly mortgage payment has jumped nearly 90% since 2019. Owning a home is no longer a reward for hard work. It's an impossible dream, slipping further away every year. But here's the real kicker. The homes aren't disappearing. They're just being bought up by corporations. Investment giants like BlackRock, Invitation Homes, and other Wall Street firms now own more than 550,000 single-family homes across America. In 2024 alone, 1 out of every 4 home sales went to an institutional investor, not a family. Whole neighborhoods in Texas, Arizona, and Georgia are now owned by hedge funds that rent homes back to the very people who should have owned them. The result? A nation turning from homeowners into permanent renters, trapped in a corporate landlord economy. And every month, more families find themselves priced out or worse, pushed out. Homelessness has surged 12% in just 1 year, the largest jump ever recorded. Tent cities are spreading from city alleys to suburban sidewalks. For millions, the American dream has become nothing more than a corporate asset, packaged, traded, and rented for profit. This isn't a housing market anymore, it's a controlled asset game, rigged to keep working people chasing what used to be a right, a home of their own. America is becoming a nation of debtors and renters, not owners. And as mortgage rates rise and investors expand, the dream fades. One eviction, one rent hike, one sold neighborhood at a time. 9. The Great American Blackout. Now let's talk about a collapse that's already spreading, one flickering light at a time. Because while the media talks about tech, growth, and innovation, millions of Americans are living in literal darkness. The United States, the richest country on earth, is facing an energy crisis that few are willing to admit. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, power outages are up 150% since 2015. Millions are losing electricity every single day, not because of war or natural disaster, but because of neglect. The average power line in America is over 40 years old, and the major substations that power entire cities haven't been upgraded in decades. We're running a 21st century economy on 20th century infrastructure, and now it's breaking. At the same time, utility costs have skyrocketed, up 20% nationwide since 2022. Families are being forced to make impossible choices: heat or food, light or rent. It's called energy poverty, a growing crisis where keeping the lights on has become a luxury. The National Energy Assistance Directors Association reports that 1 in 6 U.S. households, more than 20 million families, have fallen behind on utility bills this year. And here's the shocking part. Over 3 million homes have already been disconnected entirely. 3 million homes dark and silent, while corporate energy giants like Duke and PG&E report combined profits of over $113 billion. It's not just an inconvenience, it's a public health catastrophe. States like Texas and Louisiana, families have literally died of heat exposure, unable to afford air conditioning during record-breaking summers. Meanwhile, rural America suffers the longest. Blackouts last 5 times longer there than in cities. This is what systemic decay looks like. The lights are going out in the world's richest nation while CEOs cash their bonuses and regulators look the other way. And it's not just about electricity. It's about the collapse of the basic promise that America once made, that hard work would guarantee comfort, safety, and light. When a family can't afford to turn on a fan, when children do homework by candlelight in a first world country, that's not just an energy problem, it's a sign of civilization unraveling. Because when energy becomes a privilege instead of a right, society begins to fracture. Hospitals falter, homes freeze, food spoils, and life itself becomes a luxury only the rich can afford. This isn't a distant warning, it's happening now, quietly, steadily, one blackout at a time. And as the lights flicker across America, what we're really seeing is a reflection of the deeper truth. The empire isn't just losing power, it's running out of energy to sustain its own illusion of prosperity. The debt trap and financial servitude. Imagine working your whole life only to find that no matter how hard you try, you'll never get ahead. That's the reality for millions of Americans trapped in a system built on debt, not freedom. Total U.S. household debt has soared to an astronomical $17.9 trillion. That's trillion with a T, and it's not just mortgage debt, it's credit cards, auto loans, and student loans, chaining people to a lifetime of financial servitude. Credit cards alone total $1.4 trillion, with average APRs nearing 25%. Auto loans sit at $1.6 trillion, while student loans, even after partial forgiveness programs, have ballooned to $1.77 trillion, with 22 million borrowers in default or forbearance. For the average American, this isn't just a number, it's a lifetime sentence. The typical person now carries over $58,000 in personal debt, not including mortgages. That's debt that eats away at paychecks, consumes savings, and traps families in a cycle they can rarely escape, and the system is designed to keep it that way. Payday lenders charging up to 400% APR thrive on desperation, while banks rake in $11 billion annually in overdraft fees. These aren't accidents, they're features of a financial system built to extract wealth from the many and transfer it to the few. The reality is harsh. The U.S. economy doesn't need fully productive citizens. It needs perpetual debtors, people who are one emergency away from financial ruin, forced to keep working, borrowing, and consuming. The paycheck has become a temporary bandage between loans, bills, and utilities, a tool of dependence, not liberation. This is financial servitude at its finest. Every credit card swipe, every loan payment, every overdraft fee reinforces a system where your labor enriches others while your own financial security erodes. The economy is not failing. It's functioning exactly as it was designed to keep ordinary Americans in infinite repayment plans, working harder for less while the elite consolidate wealth and power. 11. The moral and social unraveling. The collapse of America isn't just financial, it's moral, social, and systemic. Permanent inflation has reset the cost of living at crisis levels. Food prices are 36% higher than in 2019, while rent, healthcare, and other essentials have skyrocketed. For millions, survival isn't a choice, it's a constant struggle. At the same time, trust in institutions has crumbled. Only 16% of Americans say they trust the federal government, and less than 20% trust mainstream media. Civic faith, the glue holding society together, is gone. When people lose trust in the system, chaos and despair follow. Economic inequality fuels this erosion. 71% of Americans now believe the economy is rigged, and they're right. The top 10% control 70% of the nation's wealth, while the bottom half owns a mere 2.6%. This isn't capitalism at work. It's a feudal system disguised as opportunity, with the majority laboring to support a tiny elite. Moral bankruptcy accompanies financial collapse. This empire hasn't failed due to money. It has failed in ethics, accountability, and humanity. The disintegration didn't happen overnight. It is the result of decades of choices that prioritized profit over people, efficiency over empathy, and extraction over equality. The social contract has frayed. Communities that once held Americans together, schools, local businesses, healthcare, civic institutions, are eroding under the weight of neglect and exploitation. People are left to fend for themselves in a system designed to profit from desperation. The truth is uncomfortable. The collapse is engineered, not accidental. The rising debt, inequality, and despair aren't glitches. They're part of a calculated system that thrives on human struggle. The moral and social unraveling is the backdrop to an economic system that values wealth concentration over human welfare. 12. The human cost and final reality. Numbers tell part of the story, but the real tragedy is in the lives behind them. Over 42 million Americans now rely on food banks to survive. Millions are working full-time and still cannot cover rent, 8 million people in this exact position. Meanwhile, 61% of Americans report being just one missed paycheck away from disaster. Every day, signs of collapse are visible. Grocery shelves are empty by mid-month, debit cards are declined at the gas pump, and families scramble for second jobs just to afford basic necessities. Survival has become a full-time occupation. But here's the hidden truth. This system didn't fail by accident. It was designed for extraction, not equality. Corporate profits depend on keeping citizens in controlled desperation. Every economic crisis, every interest payment, every rent hike reinforces a system that benefits the few while grinding the many down. The final reality is grim but clear. The collapse isn't in the future. It's already here. It's economic, moral, and psychological. It exists in empty aisles, mounting debt, vanished benefits, and families who cannot sleep for fear of eviction. The American dream didn't die suddenly. It has been dismantled piece by piece. One policy, one debt trap, one broken paycheck at a time. Home ownership has been replaced by corporate rentals. Jobs promise wages but deliver dependency. Healthcare provides profit but denies survival. And the moral compass of the nation has been eroded under the weight of inequality. The choice for Americans is stark: continue pretending everything is fine, or wake up to the system's reality and demand change. The collapse has already arrived, silent, suffocating, and widespread. Awareness is the first step, because denial will only prolong the suffering. For millions, survival is no longer enough. Action, awareness, and adaptation are the only ways forward in a nation where debt, despair, and inequality have become the new normal.